Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the FZY Israel Tour 2025 Parent Information Evening Update. Thank you for joining us. I know it was short notice, but we really appreciate you being able to come on tonight. So this call is going to kind of go through the email you received today. I'm Lucy. I'm FZY's Mazkira. I've been working for the movement for 2 years. I'm joined with Jake, who is the Rosh of Israel Tour this year, as well as Joel, who's FZY's Executive Director, and Adam, who is the head of UGIA Israel Experience. If you do have questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. You need to be a subscriber for security reasons of FZY in order to post those questions, and we will get to them at the end. We may cover your questions through this PowerPoint, through this presentation, so I would recommend waiting. But again, thank you all for joining us, and we really appreciate you being here tonight. So I'm going to pass over to Joel. He's going to move on with this evening.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you everyone here for joining us. So I just want to just talk through what are our goals for this evening, for this meeting. The first is we want to explain how we assess safety. Like, how is it that we reach certain decisions in terms of whether it's possible for Israel Tour to happen or not. We want to then share with you how we reach the current decision, which we shared out with you earlier this morning via email. We want to kind of provide a timeline of what comes next, and then provide a space for you to answer your questions at the end. So we want to kind of start by recognizing this is a difficult environment and a difficult decisions and difficult time for everyone. Right now, FZY are trying to make these difficult decisions, in terms no one wanted this war to have happened, especially so close to the time when Israel Tour was happening. And we're trying to make these very difficult decisions, looking after the needs of the parents and the participants, and making sure we're making the right decisions there. And we recognize as well that this is a very difficult and emotional and uncertain time for you all, both participants and parents. We know that for some of you, you're frustrated that, from our email today saying that we are delaying that decision. We know that others are hopeful that, that they have that possibility to go to Israel, which is something that they signed up for and is something that they wanted. At the same time, we know that others are anxious about that possibility of going as well, and others are just looking for certainty. We know that people are coming from different places. We know that we are very close to the scheduled time when Israel Tour was due to go out. We recognize that, we hear that, and all we can say is we are doing everything that we can and working the best way that we can to try and reach the right decisions that are right for everyone. So I just want to make sure that we're clear as we're starting this process about what are our core values. First thing to say here is safety is paramount. That is the number one piece that we are thinking about when we're making any decision. We will not take participants anywhere. We will not go anywhere if we believe it is unsafe, and that is paramount, and that is the core, which leads all the rest of the decisions. Next is transparency and communication guide us. We've been trying to over the last couple of weeks to be in regular contact with you, to be sharing with you our thoughts as we've been going along, trying to share with you our plan. And we want to continue that, and we want to ensure that transparency and communication is throughout this whole process. And finally, Zionism and Israel remain central to FZY's mission. FZY stands for the Federation of Zionist Youth. Israel is central to everything that we do. Obviously, as we said, as I mentioned about in point one, safety is paramount. If Israel is not a safe place to be going to, then we will not take our participants there. And we'll explain in a minute that process as that we're going through. But if it is possible to go to Israel, Israel is central to who we are as an organization. It's in our name, and it's in everything that we do. And so that's why Israel for us is important. And we want to keep that on the table for as long as it's possible and reasonable to do so. Let me pass over now to Adam, who's going to take us through the next few slides.
Thanks a lot, Joel. So my name's Adam Waters. I'm the director of UGI Israel Experience, just I know this has been mentioned in previous parents' evenings for those who remember, but I'll just remind everyone of what that actually is and what the structure is here. So in every Israel tour that runs from the UK, um, we have three main partners. So one is your youth movement, which is FZY, and FZY it's their Israel tour. They're the tour operator, and they do a fantastic job in running that. There is also the tour provider on the ground. FZY work with an organization called Tlalim, who are also fantastic. And there's UJI Israel Experience, which is what I lead. We are a partnership of UJI, the charity, and the Jewish Agency for Israel. So everything is done under the banner of the Jewish Agency, and with a lot of infrastructure and support in place for that. So as I said, we support all of the youth movements in the UK who run Israel tours, and we try and support everyone through centralized coordination and thinking and guidance. So for all of the tours this summer, there are a number of different factors as to whether or not they can go ahead or not. Every movement is in a slightly different position in terms of their different timelines, and I'll go into that a little bit more afterwards. But there are a certain number of key criteria that everyone has to meet in order for tour to go ahead. There is the security element. Is it safe to run tour on the ground in Israel? And we work very closely with partners on the ground in Israel. There's something called Cheder Matzav, and there's something called Pikud HaOref, which is the Home Front Command, who give that guidance and to let us know what the situation is like on the ground in Israel. And the Jewish Agency also has its own security department, which guides and advises as well. There is whether or not flights are available if skies are open and have returned to normal. That's the second key factor. Insurance is another question. There are a number of different insurances at play, and making sure that all of those insurances are there and that the level of cover that we require is there is a third key factor. And finally, the Foreign Office guidance from this country, from the UK. So currently, three of those four factors are in place. The security situation on the ground in Israel is back to normal. Schools are back to normal in Israel. Educational activities are allowed. Everything has been eased. That is all in place. From the 29th of July, I think we're going to go on to this in other slides as well, but from the 29th of June, sorry, the skies are fully open in Israel. They've started to pick up. El Al, Israel and Arkia are fully running, and a few other airlines as well. But the flights that FZY have booked for the 7th to the 9th are all in play, are all still going ahead, and the skies are open, and the insurances we have are in place. The fourth one, the Foreign Office guidance, currently advises against all travel to Israel. We will only run if all four indicators are met. So at the moment, we are waiting for the Foreign Office to change their guidance, to ease their guidance, to let us know that it's okay to go to Israel. And UK law and our safeguarding responsibilities play a significant role as well in our decision-making process. So whilst the Foreign Office guidance is what it says, it's guidance. There's no sort of legal requirement there. You still, as a UK citizen, could get on a plane tomorrow and go to Israel, and you wouldn't face any legal issues with that. Israel is still open. You can make your own decision. Whilst the guidance is in place, we consider that guidance, and obviously it's a very important part of our decision-making process. So this is a bit more in depth about the security guidance. So currently, the only exception to the Home Front Command guidelines in terms of restrictions on where you can go is in the Gaza envelope. And FZY tours are not visiting the Gaza envelope this summer. And Cheder Matzav, which is the Situation Room, who sort of take all of the guidance from across all the different government ministries and the police and the health service and Magen David Adom and the army. They don't have any restrictions in place currently relating to the war. So you can see here there's a screenshot of what the current guidance is. There is no restrictions on gatherings and services. Workplaces have no restrictions, and key for us, educational activities, which is what we are considered under the Cheder Matzav guidance, has no restrictions. I'll just reiterate as well something that we've said in previous ones, which is that every single day, the day's itinerary is submitted to Cheder Matzav for approval every day. So itineraries can change for various reasons, but currently the guidance is all in place for us to go. and the security infrastructure that's in place on a daily basis will still be there. So as I mentioned, as of Sunday, the 29th of June, El Al are operating full schedule plus additional flights. So at the moment, they're going through a process of repatriating Israelis back to Israel and supporting those wishing to go back home who had cancelled flights as well. And there are also non-Israeli airlines returning to Israel, for example, FlyDubai and Air France returning in the coming days. There's also a number of other carriers who are coming back and starting up their operations again. So once we get through the next couple of days of El Al dealing with cancellations and repatriations, from the 29th, they are back to a full schedule, and they are putting on additional flights as well to support the additional need. Our medical and travel insurance policies are unaffected. They will still cover cancellations and curtailments. Excuse me, there is a war exclusion, but that has always been there, and there are other mitigations that we have in place to cover for that. So you will still be covered for health cover, lost baggage, etc. If you have to cancel your trip on tour because of injury or a family bereavement or something like that, you can still claim on your travel insurance, and that is still covered. A lot of those things are covered irrespective of the government guidance. There are certain things that wouldn't be covered if it was red, which is one of the reasons why red is one of our key priorities and has to change. But if the government guidance changes to amber or green, absolutely everything is still covered and is still in place. We also have this key partnership with the Jewish Agency. So we've spent a lot of time over the past few days speaking with high-level partners at the Jewish Agency and in the Israeli government. And we have a written confirmation. We wanted to get something in writing, just to have an extra level of security here, that specifically our groups of 16-year-olds, our UK groups, will be a priority by the Jewish Agency in the unlikely event of a repatriation scenario. So over the last 2 weeks, we've been working day and night, hands-on, to repatriate a number of participants we had in Israel on birthright trips, on volunteering trips, on training seminars, on all sorts of things that we had UK participants on gap years. And we've been working very hard to repatriate that, and that's all been coordinated by the Jewish Agency, who have really done a fantastic job, and we've worked very hard to do that. We, in a positive way, have had a very good trial run of repatriation. So we're very confident going into the summer that those processes and procedures are in place. And we have had this reassurance from the Jewish Agency that in terms of priority levels, our 16-year-old groups would be the absolute priority, above other people, or older participants on other programs, and so on and so forth. So that's key for us, and hopefully a big reassurance. We hope, obviously, that won't be necessary. And also, given the current situation and the way the ceasefire is holding, we don't anticipate any dramatic changes in the coming weeks. So why the delay? So the ceasefire only took effect on Tuesday. We're all waiting to see how it goes. Everything so far has been positive. All the talk coming out of Israel and Iran and America and other neighboring countries is all positive that this ceasefire is a good one and it will hold. We, as I said, I'll reiterate, we take security guidance from the security professionals who are working with the Israeli military and the Israeli government. So these aren't just we think it's okay. This is guidance that we're getting from those who actually know. And this delay allows us to give the Foreign Office more time to do their reviews and respond. The Foreign Office in the UK is very cautious, but we are having lots of conversations with them, with the British government, with various different ministries, with the embassies in Israel and in the UK. And they are almost ready to change their guidance back. But the bureaucracy in the UK can take time. So we are trying to give as much time as possible for the guidance to change. So we are confident that everything is safe. We are confident that talk can run, and that there is no difference at the moment to a normal year where there is always risk, and we know that there is always risk in a normal year of hostilities or terrorism or whatever it might be. We have no additional concerns as it is, and the guidance we're getting is all good for tour to run. We're just waiting on that Foreign Office piece. And this allows us to preserve the opportunity for Israel Tour. That's why we're all here. That's why we exist. That's one of the core values of FZY, as Joel said, is going to Israel and running Israel Tour. Whilst I'm sure the plan Bs that FZY have in mind, they sound absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure your children will have a wonderful time on them. That's not Israel Tour. And that is the primary goal for all of us in this, is to give Israel Tour as much time as possible for it to go ahead. And if it can't go ahead, it can't go ahead. And there'll be some fantastic alternatives. I just wanted to also give a bit more of a helicopter view of the whole community, because obviously FZY aren't making these decisions in isolation. We're part of a broader UK community. There's 8 different youth movements who are going to Israel this summer with Israel tours. And everyone is in a very similar situation, but each movement has its own specific timeframes based on when its scheduled flights are to go out to Israel. So as an example, there is one youth movement whose scheduled flights aren't due until the very, very end of July. So it's a very different question for them because they have much more time to wait and see what happens. There are other movements whose scheduled flights were due to go out on Monday. So for those movements, we have managed to push their flights back to a similar time that FZY are going, and that they're now working on a similar schedule to FZY in terms of when they're making that decision. Other movements are somewhere in the middle. They're going to give it another week maybe or so to see what the Foreign Office can do. But everyone is in the same position, and a lot of those schedules as well are based on the viability of being able to offer a plan B. They want to give your children a fantastic summer. So if Israel Tour unfortunately can't go ahead, think that decision needs to be made with enough time to offer a suitable and enjoyable and educational plan B. And I know FZY have been working incredibly hard to make sure that all of those options are still on the table and that they can take that time to really make the most informed decision on Israel Tour and give it as much possibility to go ahead as they can before shifting to, as I said, one of their fantastic plan B options. So that's where we are as a community from our position in UJI Israel Experience. We, as long as the Foreign Office guidance changes, and assuming there are no further developments, we are very confident that Israel Tour can go ahead and can be run safely and securely in a similar way to we ran last summer. We were very proud to take almost 500 young people to Israel last summer in what was probably over the course of the summer, actually a slightly more challenging situation. And we were very proud that we were able to do that safely and securely, thanks to all the infrastructure that's in place and the partnerships that are in place. And the risk assessments that are put in place. I'll talk a little bit more just about risk assessments before I hand back to Joel. There are many different risk assessments that that happen and get taken into account through all the different partners. So all the different partners run dynamic risk assessments, constantly updating their guidance. That is done by UJI, the charity. That is done by the Jewish Agency and its security department. That is done by my department at UJI Israel Experience, specifically looking at the tours. That is also done by FZY, and that is also done by the tour providers on the ground in Israel, who do a more in-depth risk assessment to do with the actual specific activities. Everyone has their own slight nuance on their risk assessment, what we're looking at, and what the red or green lines are for all of us within that partnership. But there is a huge conversation that goes on in the background. This isn't just FZY deciding yes or no. There are multiple partners here at multiple levels with multiple levels of experience and expertise, combining to make sure that that decision is made and that if it can go ahead, it's going ahead safely and securely. And now I will pass back to Joel.
Thank you, Adam. So I'm just going to pick up, I guess, from where Adam left off about kind of like just like relating back to the delay. Like this delay is also means that whilst this delay is happening, like it's not that we are ignoring alternative programming. We want to make that clear, and shortly in a couple of slides' time, I'll say a few more words about that. During these few days, we're continuing to plan these alternatives in the same way that we're continuing to plan Israel. The last thing to say about delaying this decision to Tuesday evening to make our final decision is that it's very clear that this will be our final decision. That's the final date. There will be no pushing back that time. I know originally we told you probably about 10, 12 days ago, maybe even 2 weeks ago now, we told you that we'd let you know today. That was right at the start of the conflict with Iran. And at that time, that was the assessment that we made. Obviously, a lot has happened in the last 10 days, 2 weeks, especially in the last 48 hours or so with the ceasefire, which took effect. We've done our own kind of like process throughout this over the last few days. And we believe that by making a decision on Tuesday, we still have the ability to go ahead without alternative options. Yet we still also provide as much chance as possible to run Israel tour. However, if we kind of like move past Tuesday, then then some of those things will come at risk, which is why for us Tuesday is that date. The end of the day on Tuesday will be that final decision, and that won't be moved again. So we want to make that clear to you. This isn't kind of like a moving timeline. This is a hard timeline that we're sharing with you. So yeah, so like I just also want to make sure to you understand like where are we up to when it comes to our own readiness for Israel tour. Like if the FCDO guidance was to change at some point over the next few days, we are absolutely ready to move ahead with Israel tour. Our flights are secured. Our staff have been trained and they're in place. In fact, like a training seminar that was meant to be happening in Israel, 2 weeks ago, a week, 2 weeks ago, was moved to happen in the UK instead. So it wasn't like we gave up on that training process. We continued with that training process. The Madrachim are ready, and they are absolutely prepared. Security plans have been approved. They're, in terms of what the program is doing, where we're going, all of those informations are being sent through to the Cheder Matzav, which has to be done in advance. And we're getting all the security approval on that at the moment, and well, have already been approved actually. As Adam mentioned, our medical and our travel insurance is in place, it's confirmed, and Tlalim and the other logistical partners who they work with on the ground have got bookings in place, and they're also just on standby now, waiting for our final decision in the coming days. I just want to say a couple of words here just about families with flight deviations, because I know that few people have called into the office or emailed into the office today wanting to know that, if Israel tour goes ahead, but they no longer want to remain with their flight deviation, would they be able to move onto the group flight? We will touch on this more on Tuesday evening, should the decision be for us to be able to move ahead with Israel tour. Firstly, this is a process that will be managed by the UJ's experience with Adam's department, who are the ones who are liaising with Allow. But basically, if there is room on that group flight, then if there's availability there on that group flight, then we'll be able to make those moves. But it will all depend on that availability. But as I said, that's something that we will speak a little bit more on Tuesday evening if we move ahead with the Israel tour program. So refunds and cancellations. One of the things that we wanted to do at this point was we recognize this is not like a normal situation. We know that when people signed up for Israel tour, even though Israel was in a state of war, even though at that time the FCDO guidance was amber, we recognize that what has happened over the last couple of weeks is probably something that many of you may not have expected to happen, and we want to kind of reflect that within our cancellation policy as well. Until now, the cancellation policy is if FZY cancels, then we will refund all of the monies that we are able to recover. But if a participant cancels, then they would lose money according to where we are, how close we are to the departure date. What we want to try to do is we want to be able to make sure, recognizing that even if FZY even if FZY can go ahead because of the FCDO guidelines changing at some point over the next few days, we recognize that maybe there are families here that don't feel comfortable at this point to send their children to Israel. We recognize that. And we're not here profiteering off of anyone. We want to make sure that, in these exceptional circumstances, that people can get the money back that we are able to recoup. In terms of how that works, is we won't have answers as to how much money that is, probably for another few weeks yet. There are many different factors that are in play with regards to that. We are doing everything that we can. We're continually speaking with our suppliers as part of the conversations that we've had about delaying, is also being part of about how, we don't want to delay the program, but delay our decision by another few days. if that means we're putting parents' money at further risk. These are all conversations that we've been having throughout. But we want to kind of like make that clear to you now that from today moving forwards, and there's no deadline on this. People can make a decision to cancel the day before Israel tour, if that's what works for them. But from now until kind of like Israel tour departs, if someone chooses to cancel, even if FZY is going ahead, that we will refund all monies that we are able to recover. One thing that we should say is obviously the later somebody leaves it to cancel, there could be more costs. We've been able to put in place that and between now and when FZY makes its final decision, there won't be any changes of like what the refund will be. But for people who decide that they want to hang on 2, 3, 4, 5 days after that final decision is made, there could be additional costs that we will be unable to reclaim. So that's just something we want to be clear about and to share with you so you can make your decisions appropriately. In order, if someone does want to cancel on the program, that must be done via email. And so please, there's the email address here, office@fzy.org.uk. If someone believes that they want to cancel, please make sure you send an email there stating that and obviously stating your child's name so we can process that. In terms of alternative options, so like as we said, we're finalizing our backup options right now. These options will be ready to launch should we need to on Tuesday evening. As we said, like FZY is still hopeful and still wants to move ahead to Israel tour. And if the FCDO changes its guidance, we will be offering Israel tour and only Israel tour. If FCDO does not change its guidance by Tuesday evening, we will not be offering Israel tour and we will be offering other alternative programming. We can only really kind of like share the information about what that alternative programming will be, if we get to that point. What we can say is, we're not just kind of like looking for any option. We want to make sure that an option that we provide is going to be something that will be meaningful, that will be fun, that will be educational, that sticks with FZY's values. They're all kind of like the core pieces that we're holding on to when we've been like building these alternative options. As much as possible, we have tried to build options which fall within the dates of Israel tour. But I want to be like very open and honest and transparent here. A couple of weeks before Israel tour goes, like this happened, and to try and turn around, to try and find different options for 400 plus people that we have signed up for Israel tour is challenging. Even if we had these options kind of like there sitting there ready, previously, all of these options would have had to have been given up somewhere between 1 to 2 months ago, because all of these options would require us to put down financial commitment to them, and there was no reason to do that because of a month ago to 2 months ago there was absolutely no reason. There was not kind of like the thought that maybe Israel tour would not be able to go ahead. So these are all things that we've had to put together just in the last couple of weeks. So we have been trying very hard to make sure that all of these alternative programming would fall within the dates of Israel tour, but I want to be honest now, then not all of those will. We will not be offering just one option. There will be, a couple, 2 or 3 options that we'll be offering, because there's no one option at such a late stage which will be able to kind of like have 400 people in there. And we are striving and we're doing everything that we can to ensure that everyone who would like to do an alternative option with us, should Israel tour not happen, will be able to have one. We cannot offer any 100% guarantee at this stage that can happen. We are working very hard to that. We still have another few more days to continue working towards that, and we are putting a lot of hours and a lot of time into that. But we want to be clear. We think that we've gone a long way along this process. We think we have some great options which are available, but we just want to kind of be very clear in terms of like, if we get to this point and sharing it, that there's not going to be any surprises, that potentially some of the dates don't match up, that potentially, it's not just everyone going to one place, and all of these other things. So We will share more on Tuesday evening if there's a need to. But in the meantime, please be rest assured we are working on it. And just because the Israel tour may be what FZY is hoping for does not mean that we are not working exceptionally hard on building these other options. Because for us, it's really important that if we can, that we can provide your children this summer a really positive, meaningful Jewish Zionist experience. So let's just talk through like the key dates for where from now until the next week or so. So for anyone who would, as we said from today, anyone who wants to cancel, if they know for sure they're not going to, they want to go on Israel tour, given the current situation. If you want to, you can start a process of cancelling at any time from now. By the end of the working day on Tuesday, we will communicate with you via email in the first instance what our final decision is. Should the FCDO change their guidance before Tuesday, we're not going to wait until Tuesday. Like if FCDO change their guidance tomorrow, we will inform you as soon as we can, practically after that point, to share with you that Israel tour is the way. But should the FCDO not change their guidance by the end of the day of Tuesday, that we will send out an email at that point, which will also have a link in it to join us for an information evening on that Tuesday evening. So in addition to the email, which will share with you lots of details about what those alternative options are, we'll also have an evening where we'll be able to share some more information and have opportunity to answer your questions that you may have about it. We will continue to be updating you as and when necessary. I hope that over the last couple of weeks, you feel that we have been updating you regularly. And when there has been information to share, we will continue to do that. There's no specific planned email to go out to you. We probably will send actually an email with the link to this for those people who were unable to join tonight, so they can ensure they can watch this at a later date. Outside of that, there's no specific planned communication with you until we announce that on Tuesday evening. But if there are things to share with you beforehand, we absolutely will. Our commitment to you is that we will continue to be transparent and empathetic and responsive to you. We will do everything in our power to deliver a meaningful summer for every participant who would want, and we will act with integrity and responsibility in all our decisions. And I think it's really important that these are three really core key things that we want to be able to be doing and that we are striving to be doing every single day. And we will continue to be doing that over the coming days as we're making our final decision. So in summary, before we kind of close up, and we'll turn to Lucy in a minute, I know has been keeping an eye on any questions that have been coming in. FZY are committed to running to Israel tour if the FCDO changes its guidance and it becomes viable. We will not compromise on safety. We have alternatives that we are building that we are happy with and we're excited about, and we will share with you if FCDO guidance does not change. You are able to make cancellations at any point and receive a full refund of all recoverable funds. And we will communicate with you at the end of the day on Tuesday, and there'll be a follow-up information evening that evening where we can share more information with you. So I want to just finish before passing to Lucy just to thank you. We recognize this is really not an easy situation for anyone, but we really do thank you for your patience, for your trust and your partnership there. We're here to support you, both FZY, UJA, Israel Experience, and all of the partners involved in the Israel Tour process. We are here for you. So if you do have questions which will not be answered tonight, or there's more information that you need, or you just want to talk through any decisions that you may be having, then please do reach out to us. Our team will be very, very happy to share their ideas, their thoughts, and their comments with you. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll pass over to Lucy.
So yeah, I'm just going to read the questions that have come through. I do think a few of them we've already answered after they came in, so I'm just going to go through the ones we haven't. So the first question, is there any chance tour can be pushed back a week or two if the Foreign Office are unable to change it prior to Tuesday.
Adam, do you want to take that one? Because there's several factors. One of them is flights, which I think, Adam, maybe you're best to deal with.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So the the short answer is, in theory, yes. Everyone will work hard to put those in place, the tour providers on the ground and FZY and so on and so forth. The key deciding factor there is flights. So at the moment, in the way the state that El Al are in terms of the numbers that they're dealing with and the capacity they have and the repatriation efforts and so on and so forth, they're not in a position today, and this is something we've asked and something it's one of the things that we've looked into for all the youth movements, is to see if we can push dates back and so on and so forth. They're not able to give us an answer now as to whether they can put on additional flights at a later date for us, because it would need to be additional flights outside of their main service. I don't know if anyone has tried to book a flight to Israel in the last 6 months, but the summer has been absolutely jam-packed for quite a while, just with regular visitors. That could change in a week. It could change in 2 weeks as things get back to normal, as additional flights are put on. Unfortunately, we'll probably run out of time in terms of this decision-making process to make that decision. So it could be that come Tuesday it can't go ahead, and we're able to say we would love to do tour at a later date. We can't currently offer that, and I'm sure FZY would look into other Israel programming as well, if not this summer, in the future as well. So it's a difficult, tricky situation. They could come back to us on Monday and Tuesday and say, actually, now we can offer that. But as it currently stands, they're not in a position to do that now.
Just to add like a couple of sentences on that, from an FZY perspective. Number one, like if we get to the point that Israel tour cannot happen this summer in the next few days, we absolutely will be offering Israel tour next summer for year 12 participants. So for your children next year, it may be a slightly different time. We recognize schools finish slightly later if you're in year 12 to year 11 generally. It may be a slightly shortened program. We haven't got to those things yet, but we absolutely did, in the same way that after COVID-19, when there were some year groups that missed out on Israel tour, the year after, when we were able to go back to Israel again, we offered an Israel tour. So that is something that we would look into if Israel tour cannot happen this summer. The other thing to say is that, like Adam said, like there's no guarantees behind this in terms of what can happen or not. And so for us, it's like for Israel tour to happen, it has to happen really at these dates. One of the things that we potentially can be, and we are looking into, is that if Israel tour can't happen because the FCDO hasn't changed its guidelines, like there may be a way, if we can, it would be at a risk, but there may be a way to say, for those families which want to go to Israel and only Israel this summer, if they're willing to take a risk, we're willing to kind of like work with Allow and work with our providers to be like, can we put something on for later in the summer? But that would be a risk because there's no way to know whether, like Adam said, flights will be available, etc. But we have already spoken to Allow about these things. We have spoken to our Tlalim about accommodation and other things about those things. So it's something we've been considering, but I don't think it can be a definitive option right now.
If Israel was to go ahead, are we changing the itineraries?
In short, no. I mean, I'm sure there will be some small tweaks here and there, but in short, no. Like as Adam showed before, in terms of the guidance from the Home Front Command and the guidance from the Cheder Matzav, there's no restrictions whatsoever outside of the restrictions that are always there on our programs in terms of safety and security. So our itineraries would stay largely as they were sent out to you a few weeks ago. We don't expect to see any significant changes to
that. Is there a chance for kids whose trips were cancelled with other organisations to join at this late stage?
So look, that's a tricky one. I don't want to be able to say yes or no. Like number one, the 400 plus people who are signed up to FZY Israel Tour are the priority, and that like we're not here right now to be, even though we would love to take as many people to Israel as possible. Like let's be clear, like we had a waiting list of people who wanted to come with us this summer who couldn't come with us this summer. We recognize circumstances have changed. If there are people who at this point would like to go, and if there are some cancellations of people who are currently on the program and there are spaces which become available, it's possible. What I would say is that if there are people who who fall into that category, reach out to us. Feel free to reach out to us, but we absolutely can't guarantee anything. But if there's a way that we can make that happen, then we will. But yeah.
There's a couple questions about, will Plan B accommodate everyone? Just to clarify, there might not be enough space for each participant if Plan B was to be implemented.
So there's no one option for Plan B that will be able to have everyone. That is guaranteed. That much we know. In terms of like, will a Plan B be able to cater for everyone who wants it? If all 400 plus people want to go to Plan B, or one of the options that we're providing on Plan B, the answer is possibly, but it's not 100%. There are lots of moving parts at the moment when we're planning these things, including flights, including accommodations, including staffing. There are so many parts which are moving right now. We are aiming for that. We're striving for that. It's also, like I said, like some of these options will fall outside of the original dates of when Israel tour was meant to be. We don't know how flexible families are. If families can only go during the time when Israel tour was meant to be happening and don't have flexibility, if all 400 people were like that, then no, and not everything that we're putting together would be able to cater for everyone. If there's lots of flexibility, then yes, hopefully. But it's a very hard question to answer. There are still several unknowns, not because we are not building and we're not a long way down the path of building these programs, but it's a challenging operation in 10 days, 2 weeks to build a program which is programs which are starting in just a couple of weeks time for so many people. So it is what we're aiming for, it's what we're hoping for, but we can't offer any 100% guarantees.
There's a question about the Madrachim and if we believe they are able enough, mature enough to deal with such unknowns and difficult situations.
I'm happy to take it and other people can jump in. Yeah, look, we go through a long process in selecting these madrachim. These madrachim are people who have been actually for now probably 8-10 months have been within our system. For Israel Tour specifically, many of them have been involved with FZY for many years and have been in leadership positions for many years. Yes, they're young leaders, they're young youth leaders. We're not claiming here that they have like 20-30 years of youth experience there, but they do have experience of working with young people. We have trained them in the areas where we feel that they needed extra support with. In terms of like in Israel itself, like 50% of the madrachim, 50% of the staff are Israelis, who are used to Israel, are used to, unfortunately, the kind of situations which have been going on over the last 2 years in Israel. So as a staff team, yes, we are very confident of the capability of those staff. And if we were not, we would absolutely not be moving forward with the process. I just want to make that clear. Like we said, safety is paramount, and part of that safety is ensuring that we have the right staff on the ground who can ensure that safety. So yes, we are confident in those staff.
I'll jump in and just add as well. Whilst the madrachim and all of the partners involved have a duty of care to your children, we also take very seriously our duty of care to the madrachim themselves as well. So the training that Joel mentioned before, we gave specific training in things like how to manage stress and anxiety, also around siren situations and high pressure situations and security situations. They've had additional training in those areas, as well as mental health first aid training, the vast majority of them. And we also have a partner on the ground in Israel called Keshev, who we partner with every year. And they are therapists and psychologists on the ground in Israel who are specifically there to support the madrachim so that they can give your children the best care possible. So for any madrachim who get out there and are finding it challenging, there is a huge amount of support available to them. and we will make sure that they get that support. And if it's not working for them, there's always other options, other people who can step in at the last minute and support, and extra support that we can give to the groups as well.
Would it not be safer to go to Plan B now?
And like I think we said previously here, we're not on Plan A or Plan B. Like right now, Plan A is not something that we can move ahead with. We need the FCDO guidance in order to change in order for us to move ahead with that. Like we've said also is that like safety is paramount. If there's something which is not safe, then we would not be doing it. We would not be putting any participant, any staff person, anyone at all into any perceived danger. Like absolutely not. We also are a Zionist youth movement. Israel is core and is the center of everything that we do. And so it's not about like, if there are two options and two of them are safe, one of them is in Israel and one of them is not in Israel, we would choose the Israel option. But what needs to happen first is for the option to be safe. And what we're saying right now is not all of our indicators have been met, where we want to wait a few more days for that to happen. If that does happen, and we would therefore, by all of the partners that we work with who help to determine whether a program is safe, determine that yes it is, then we will go ahead with Israel. And if that's determined that it isn't, then we will move to Plan B.
Will it be a frantic rush on Tuesday to make the choice if there's different options for Plan B?
So I'm not going to say frantic rush, but there will be a quick turnaround. That's for sure. And it's not going to be first come, first serve. It's not going to be whoever completes a form first, will get their, option A of our Plan B, and whoever, and other people will miss out. Like we will have a whole process in place in order to be able to share the information with you properly as to what these other programs will be. You will receive a short form in order to complete and to share your preferences, which your preferences may be that we don't want any of these other programs, and we would like a refund according to the cancellation policy, and that's also completely fine. But there will be a deadline for that form to come in. It's not going to be it's not going to be a long deadline. It's not going to be like several days or a week or so. It will be a short deadline because there will be lots of things that need to be turned around quickly in order for us to be able to move ahead with these options. But it won't be a frantic rush. It's not like you have to, get off of the information evening and within an hour make a decision. You will have some time.
We have a couple questions about the clarity of the Plan B option. I know we did go over this, but I just want to clarify our position on this chart.
So I'm not sure I understood the question exactly. What
are the Plan B options? I know we sort of spoke about this already, but yeah.
Yeah. So look, we're not sharing what the specific options are at this point, and we will only share those if and when we get to the point where we have to move to Plan B. There's several reasons why we're not able to share right now. So all I can say is, as what we said previously, that they will be fun, meaningful, exciting educational programs based on FZY's core values. They will be safe. They will be a program that we hope will be appealing to your children. But I can't really go into more details now. And until these other options become a pathway which we're actually going down, that information, I guess, is slightly less relevant. I know it may be relevant in terms of maybe parents are thinking of like, what if they don't feel comfortable about going to Israel, or if Israel cannot happen, what will they want to do with, what options are available for their kids in the summer? All I can say is that we just can't share that information until Tuesday evening if we get to that point. And I know that may be frustrating and difficult and challenging. And I apologize for that, but that's, we can't kind of share more at this point as we're still finalizing those details, and hoping to move forward with the Israel tour in an ideal world.
There's a few questions about the groups. So on one side, if Israel tour does go ahead and people cancel, will the groups be mixed up, or will they retain their original tour groups? And on the other side, if Plan B goes ahead, will they have their original tour groups, or will they be mixed up?
Again, these are like very difficult questions to answer because there's a lot of hypotheticals and moving parts in that. If there are cancellations, it depends on how many. Let's talk about the Israel tour piece first. If there are cancellations, it depends on how many cancellations, and it depends on where those cancellations come from. If all of them, or a significant number of them come from one or two groups, then we may have to merge certain groups, or we may have to change some groups around. If the numbers which cancel are spread out across all of the groups, then maybe we'll just go with slightly smaller groups on the Israel tour program. So it's very hard to know until we understand the situation and we know what position we're in. We will absolutely endeavor, and this is both for the Israel tour program or for our Plan B alternatives if they happen. Like we recognize that people want to spend their summer with their friends. Like we know that. That's why we ask that question on the Israel tour application form. That's why I can tell you if you get to the Plan B form, there is a question there about friendships as well. Like we recognize that's something that's important for the participants and it's important for us as well. The chances are there will be certain types of movement, whether that's just group shrinking, whether that will be, different groups. Like we can't commit to groups being the same at this point. Things have changed a little bit too much since we put those groups together to be able to commit to those. We are committing wherever we can to try to keep friendship groups together where that is possible.
Should Israel tour go ahead, what extra support can you offer us if the kids get caught up over there?
Do you want to? I'm gonna Adam, you take it up in speaking.
Sure. As I mentioned before, we've been working very closely over the last 2 weeks in terms of repatriation and getting people out of Israel. That has included boats and planes. So that is something we are unfortunately very experienced at as a result of the last 2 weeks. There are a number of different routes that we can take and things that can be done in an emergency situation, depending on what the emergency is. As an example, during the 2014 war in Gaza, there were a number of groups on the ground. The vast majority of them had their itineraries changed and spent the entire time in the north of Israel. A lot of them didn't get to visit Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, but they still had a 2 to 3 week program in the north of Israel and had a lovely time. That's the first port of call, is we can change itineraries, we can look at geographic locations and move people to safe spaces. Something that happened with, I'll share from one of our groups 2 weeks ago. We had a program called Birthright Israel Onward, which is an 8-week internship program. We had a group of 37 British students living in Tel Aviv. On Friday, the day that everything began, they were all moved to a safe place within Tel Aviv. Very quickly, it was understood that Tel Aviv was going to be a target and might not be safe. They were all moved down to Eilat. They spent a week in Eilat, perfectly safe in Eilat, before they were able to be evacuated, before the boats and the planes were able to move. So there's a lot of infrastructure in place. There's a lot of organizations who work in those type of things, and it's led by the government. A lot of you will have been aware of the Foreign Office flights as well that got put on. They were slightly less quick. I believe the British government managed to get about 63 people out of Israel during that time. By contrast, us and our partners through the whole sector managed to evacuate around about 3,000 to 4,000 people during that time. So we're very confident in the partnerships that exist and the structures that are in place. But obviously, everything is dependent on the situation as to what response is needed.
Thank you, Adam. I think that was the last question. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I know it was last minute, but we really, really do appreciate you joining us. And just to reiterate what Joel said, your trust, understanding, and support during this time. We really, really do appreciate it. And any other questions or queries, please do get in touch with the FZY office, and we are more than happy to have these conversations to help aid all of us having an amazing summer 2025. So thank you all so much, and we will see you soon.